Okay, this is the part 2 of the Pacman tutorial. We finished off last time being able to move our Pacman around once we hit the start button, and we're able to move the paddle up and down, and it bounces off that using our hit test. And now we're going to add a few more features. Today we're going to add the ability for whenever the Pacman hits a wall, it's going to make a certain sound. When it hits the paddle, it'll make a different sound, and when it gets past the paddle and hits this wall, it'll make a different sound. So we have 3 different sounds we want to put in. You can find the 3 sounds if you go onto our website right by the lesson that you're watching this. There's the 3 things here, the 3 MP3s. You're going to right click and download them or save link as, and then make sure they go into the same folder as your project. So I've got my 3 saved in here. Once they are saved in there, you can then import them into your Animate project. So we go File, Import, and we're going to import to the library. And choose all 3, highlight them all, and go Open. And then if you go to your library, you should see them now inside there. That's good. Now we can start to use them and add them to our actions. So let's open up our actions window by hitting F9 and getting to our actions. So before we can use them, we need to get them to recognize them in our program and be able to use them, not just to drag them into our program like we have in the past, but to be able to use them with code. So to do that, you first have to do a few different steps. So if you go in your library, you have these individual ones here. You're going to double click on the speaker for each one. So for the first one, double click on it. There's an actionScript tab. Click on that, and we have to export for actionScript so that we can use it with, like I said, with code. So we'll go OK. There might be a pop-up, and you just check it off and say don't show again. And we'll do the same for all of these. Go to your ActionScript tab, check off the export, and go OK. And then the last one. So now we can start to use them. And just one more note, if I open it up, just to take note of the name of it, blip1. When I get it ready for ActionScript, it gives it a name, and I could rename this if I want, but we'll leave them as it is. Blip1, blip2, blip3. So now we have to make it active so that we can use it. Kind of how we set up variables, a similar way. So we do a variable, whatever we want to call this sound, and we'll call it, I don't know, sound1, colon, and then the name that we had there. So it was blip1 equals new, and then in brackets blip1, like so. Okay, and we'll do that for all of the 3. So sound2 blip2 equals new blip2. What we're actually doing here is more technical than just kind of creating a variable, but we're not going to go into it. It's kind of above what we need to do for this class. Okay, so now we've made it so it's active, we can use it. And then we just go to the parts in the code where we want to activate it, or use it, I should say. So we want to hit off the walls. So the right wall would be this first if statement here, greater than 490. You're not only going to change this direction of where the Pacman is going, we're also going to play that. So we called it sound1 dot play with 2 brackets and a semicolon. So that's the right side, and then the Y up and down, the top and the bottom are these 2. And we do the same thing, except we'll do the same sound. So sound1 dot play. You could copy paste if you want, if it's faster. Okay, so we have those 3 walls. Let's just check to make sure that that all works. So that's working. I don't know if you can hear the sound, but it should be working on yours. Okay, so that's those 3 sounds. Then when we hit the paddle, we want a different sound. So we will go sound 2 dot play. And when we get past the paddle and hit the wall, that's this one here, less than 0, and we will do sound 3 play. We'll just test it out. So we got there's a new sound there for that one, and then when we miss it, gets a different sound again. So hopefully that all works for you. Now we got our sounds. Next thing we want to add is when we get some points. So if this Pac-Man, if we hit it with our paddle, we want to add 1 to points that will display at the top. If we miss it and it hits the back wall, we want to subtract 3 points. That's our goal. So let's get to our code. We need to be able to add some points. Well, first we should add actually a text box that we can put in here. So adding text is kind of weird. And I'm not sure why Animate does this, but if we want to add text, if we go to the properties, we can change the font and those kind of things. But if we want to have it run with showing us something in, some text in here, we have to do what we did with the sounds. We have to kind of activate them or get them ready for when we publish them. So even though it shows, yeah, we can use Arial or whatever font we choose, we have to embed it into our project. So all we do is click this embed button, and we choose which characters we want to have embedded. Well, we'll just embed, we're just using numbers, but later on we might be using letters too. So we can do, let's embed all these 3. So uppercase, lowercase letters, and numbers. That should be all we need to have. We could do all, I guess, if we wanted to, but this should be good. So we'll embed those, and then we're ready to go. Let's go to our actions, and we have to keep track of the points. So every time we hit the paddle, we're going to add 1. We have to keep track of that. So we have to add another variable, just kind of like we did with our X speed and Y speed. So variable, let's call it let's call it P, okay? And that equals 0 to start off with. When you start the game, you don't have any points. Okay. So when do you get points? Well, when you hit the paddle, you should get some points. So we'll add P plus equals 1. So we're adding 1 to its current number that it is. That's how we write it. If we do not hit, so if it hits the back wall, which is this one, if it's less than 0, you want to subtract points. So P minus equals 3. And you could say minus equals 5, however many points you want to deduct when you miss. So that's not quite enough. We have to now get these points and display it in that text box that we created. And before we can do that, we have to do something with this text box. Make sure it's highlighted. Just like we did with all the other objects, we have to give it an instance name. So let's give it an instance name, points. Okay, back to our actions. So after we have subtracted these 3 points, we're going to now tell the text box to display those points. So we call it points.text equals P, the variable that's holding it. So this would normally be fine, but P is a number, and the text box only displays text, and we have to make the number look like it's text. So to do that, we type in the word string in front of it. String just stands for, it's another way of saying text. And how you'd actually say it is you're casting P as a string. So you're temporarily making this number look like or act like a text. Okay, this line we can copy And we can paste it after the one where we hit the paddle. We're going to update the text box there. So that should do it. Let's test it out. Oops. So when we hit the paddle, it goes up by 1. When we miss the paddle, whoops, we added 1. Why is that? We're going up by 3. Oh, I know what we did. Let's go back. I made a mistake here. Minus equals 3. What happened there? That should be going down. Adding 1 when we hit the paddle. And we're subtracting 3. Minus equals 3. Let's try that again. I don't know what happened there. We're going up when we hit the paddle. That's working. And when we miss the paddle, we subtracted 1. Something's fishy there. Now we're adding 3. Oh, we'll have to work on that. That's an interesting development. Okay, we will try and figure that out, why it's doing that. That's interesting. Okay, let's add one more thing. So when it gets to 10, when the points get to 10, if we can try and get this to work, why it's not doing it correctly, then we will display a message that says you win or you lose. Okay, so we'll put one more text box. Actually, we can maybe just say, we can leave this one here. We'll just use this text box. That's maybe better. Okay. Let's go to our action script, and we'll just have to add to the same section another if statement. If P equals or is greater than 9. So if we get to 10, then we're going to say points.text equals U1. And if P is less than 1, so if it equals 0, you could just say equals 0 too, that works too. And it's a brace bracket. We're going to say points.text equals you lose. Something like that. Let's try that out. Oh, we lose. Let's try one more time. We have to reset that. Oh, because we're starting at 0. That's right. That's okay. Once we start it, we'll change. Okay, so we're at 1. Let's try and just win. And remember, we set this to go faster and faster. So it'll get harder and harder. Should be able to get to 10. There, we won. But it keeps going. So we don't want it to keep going. We want it to stop. So we should write in some code to make it stop. So how do you make it to stop? Think about how we made it to go. When we started the program, we said that x speed and y speed is 0. It wasn't moving. When we hit the button, where is that? Here. When we hit the button with the mouse, we set the speed to 10. So basically, if we set these things back to 0, I'm going to copy them. If the points is, in either case, if this happens, we can just paste it in here that our x speed is 0 instead of like so. Just copy that. And we'll put the same thing under there. So as soon as we get to that point, we're going to stop. What we should do is set our points to maybe 1 so that it doesn't do that. So we start the game. Let's try and see if we can lose. See what happens. We lose. Okay? Game's over. And it's playing this sound. That's annoying. So if we don't want it to have to keep playing those sound like it's stuck there, we probably will want to move the Pac-Man to the center or just off so it doesn't keep making that sound, because that's annoying. So once we get to losing here, and if we lose, let's set our pacman.x to equal 100 or something like that. Just get it off the end, and that should do it. So it's not a perfect game, but it's got a few little glitches that I'll have to work out, but the basic idea is there. Hopefully you've learned something from it. Your next assignment will be to create your own game of your choice, and that is in the assignments section on the website.